Today we are here to talk about the Adapted Curriculum Language Arts Basal Guidance. I am Dr. Jugnu Agarwal. I am a Senior Manager for Special Education Curriculum, and I'm joined here by my colleague.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Radek. I'm the Acting Educational Specialist for Adapted Curriculum. Before we get into sort of the content of today's presentation, we want to kind of go through a couple of accessibility options for all of our participants. We're always working to try to make our trainings more accessible for everyone. So if there is something that you need during today's training or during future learning opportunities, please let us know and we'll do our best to accommodate that. If you need to take a break during today's meeting, please feel free to do so. As they mentioned earlier, the training is being recorded, so you can always go back and rewatch if you feel like you might have missed something. You also should have received an electronic copy of the slides for today. Before we begin, we would like to take a moment to point out a few of the accessibility features within Zoom, the tool that we're using to present today, just for anyone who may need or benefit from these features. So if you'd like to access live captioning during today's presentation, if you look at the bottom of your screen, you should see a little icon with a CC on it that says closed captioning. And if you click on that button, it will start captions. So you should see text show up at the bottom of your screen. If you need to change the size, color, or font of your captions, or if you need to look into any other accessibility features, such as enlarging the size of the text in your chat, or using a screen reader in the chat to access that. If you look next to the closed caption menu, there's a little triangle or caret icon. If you click on that, it'll open a menu and then just click on caption settings, and that will open the Zoom accessibility features. Within there, you can change your font sizes and make any of those customizations that you may need to make the presentation a little bit more accessible for you. So we hope those are helpful for you as you listen in today.
Thank you. So here are our outcomes for today. We will be learning about the changes to the Virginia Literacy Act. We will also be going over the components of the evidence-based literacy instruction. We will lastly go over the language arts and the literacy programming for students with significant cognitive disabilities who are accessing an adapted curriculum. So let's take a moment and to let us know about your child or your children. And
So it looks like most of the folks here today are joining us, have students in elementary school. We've got a couple of middle school families as well. Just to let you know that today's training is focused more on those elementary level skills and what our students in the elementary are going to be accessing. Got another question as well. We've got a mix of students accessing IBIDS classrooms, EAC classrooms, general education classrooms, and a couple who aren't sure. It may be that your students are in a variety of settings as well. All right, we've got one more poll question for you, just to give us a little bit more information about who else here today. So it looks like we've got a mix of students who are accessing general education curriculum as well as the adapted curriculum. The content for today's session is geared more towards that adapted curriculum. There was a session for students accessing general education curriculum a while back. So you may be able to get the recording for that if you need that information as well.
Thank you. So moving on. So for today, let's go over the background behind the changes to the literacy instruction in FCPS this year. The Virginia Literacy Act, which was passed by the Virginia General Assembly in 2022 and then expanded in 2023, focuses on improving the literacy outcomes for all students in the Commonwealth. The Virginia Literacy Act requires that each local school board shall provide a program of literacy instruction that is aligned with science-based reading research and provides evidence-based literacy instruction to students in kindergarten through 8th grade. This means that all students at the elementary level are to be instructed using basal resources as well as reading intervention as appropriate, starting in 24-25 school year, including students who access an adapted curriculum. Students who access an adapted curriculum are those students who meet the state's definition of the students with most significant cognitive disability and who are or will be participating in the Virginia Alternate Assessment Program. These students may be receiving instruction in a variety of settings, including intellectual disabilities, severe intellectual disabilities, or enhanced autism classrooms. Moving on, the proposed changes affect the reading curriculum, the assessment processes, and also the implementation of student reading plans. We will start by discussing the components of evidence-based literacy instruction found within the programming we are using in FCPS. So here is a simple view of reading, and which talks about the evidence-based literacy instruction. This visual model can help us understand how it is taught. The simple view of reading was developed in 1986 by two researchers and has been confirmed or validated by many research studies. Word reading times listening comprehension equals reading comprehension. We basically read to understand, right? So research shows that students learn to read best with direct and systematic instruction in word decoding skills, explicit opportunities to build that knowledge, vocabulary, and language comprehension skills, and also with intervention in these skills as needed. We used to spend most of our time trying to teach just the reading comprehension directly. With the VLA, which ensures that we spend time on teaching the two important foundations, or word reading and language comprehension as well. So both of those components that you see on the screen are important for teaching reading comprehension. Similar to the equation, in the simple view of reading, here on the screen, you can see the Scarborough's rope, which also asserts both of those same things, that language comprehension and word recognition are necessary for skilled readers. Scarborough describes the importance of automatic word recognition skills, which includes phonological awareness, decoding, and also sight recognition of words, so that there is minimal effort used to decode text, saving the important cognitive energy for comprehension. So again, if that recall of the words is automatic, then we can spend our time, or the students can spend their time with the comprehension piece of it. And it allows to prevent that cognitive overload. Word recognition alone does not present a complete picture of all language skills needed for reading. Language comprehension is an equally important part, and children must also have the background and the vocabulary knowledge, verbal reasoning, as well as the literacy knowledge and an understanding of the language structure in order to comprehend what they read. And similar to the simple view of reading, the Scarborough's rope can help educators understand what instruction is needed to develop students into skilled readers. So again, the rope can also serve as a roadmap to help identify students' reading difficulties. And each strand, as you see on the screen of the reading rope, intersects and weaves together, making skilled readers. Weaknesses in one strand can cause this rope to fray, and a loss of essential strength in word recognition or like language comprehension. So again, teachers can use this theoretical model to target the curriculum based on the student's reading difficulty or the needs. And although the original goal of this infographic was to draw attention to all the skills needed in the early literacy as a way to identify more children at risk for reading difficulty, the graphic has also become a key part of the research in science of reading, helping teachers support students in developing strong, stable base for word recognition. Moving on, we wanted to share with you the Equitable Access to Literacy Plan, which is from the from FCPS. And so we have put that link in the chat for you. So I invite you to take just a couple of minutes to kind of review that for yourself. I'll just give like a minute for you to go over that. And this site also includes the district literacy plan on the left side. You can see, I think it's the second or the third tab, where there's the district literacy plan, which FCPS had to submit to the Virginia Department of Education. Okay, I will bring you back. And I know there's a lot of information.
The first step in helping a child with an intellectual or developmental disability to become literate is to presume competence in his or her ability. The first step.
Sorry about that. So I think the other piece about the reading instruction is that for students with intellectual disabilities is that we must presume student competence. It is really essential to expose students to all forms of literacy, and students have the right to educators who are knowledgeable about reading instruction. So again, a key part of this is that just because a student has an intellectual disability, we are not presuming that they cannot learn the skills. In fact, there are studies that have shown that those students with significant cognitive disabilities take a little bit longer to learn all of these skills, they still learn. And so they require the systematic instruction, explicit instruction, similar to other students, and same strategies can work for all students. Again, the time requirement might be a little bit different. So moving on to the Virginia Literacy Act in FCPS, there is in alignment with the VLA requirements, students in grades K through 2 will be assessed using the Virginia Language and Literacy Screening System, also called the VALS. It is a new test of foundational reading skills, which has been developed by the Virginia Literacy Partnership and also VDOE. So this assessment is used to measure students' reading skills and screen them for reading difficulties. Students in grades 3 to 8 will be assessed using iReady, an assessment that measures reading foundation as well as reading comprehension. So again, think about that for K through 2 as well as 3 to 8, there are these assessments that help us with finding those key areas where the students and seeing where their skills might be. One of the things for students with significant cognitive disabilities is that they might participate in the VALS assessment using a non-standardized administration due to the need for modifications. So since the modifications change the construct that is being evaluated or measured, the results of the scores of the test are kind of unreliable and can only be used for planning the instruction. They cannot be used for developing a reading plan. So it is recommended that the other assessments, such as the Brigance inventories, be administered if the VALS is given with modifications to get a more complete picture of student skills and abilities and also drive the IEP development. So when we are thinking about students on their VALS assessment, students who are demonstrating high risk levels on the VALS or iReady will get extra help in their areas of need. This extra help will be in addition to their core instruction and will be documented in a reading plan. Again, because those norm scores would not be generated for students due to the non-standardized administration because of the modifications, it is not possible to determine risk levels and the need for a reading plan. Therefore, students who are administered the VALs with a non-standard administration due to modifications do not require a student reading plan. Additionally, students who are exempt from VALs per their IEP or 504 plan do not require a student reading plan. But again, we have to remember that despite of not having a reading plan, we know that students with significant cognitive disabilities certainly require intervention programming to provide that systematic, explicit literacy instruction, which is aligned with the science-based reading research, which includes phonological and phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. Now I will turn it over to Caitlin to discuss what FCPS is using for students in both the areas of English language arts and the literacy programming.
Thank you, Jignu. So we're going to start off looking at our English language arts programs. You can see here the basal programs that are being used with students based on grade level. So for our students in grades K through 2, they're using a program called Building the Stories. In students grades 3 through 5, they're using Access English Language Arts, grades 3 through 5. And students in grade 6 are using a program called Adapted Classics. We'll go into these programs a little bit more as we continue on. In addition to those basal language arts programs, we also have intervention programs for our students with significant cognitive disabilities. And here you can see the different literacy intervention programs, which provide systematic, explicit literary instruction that's aligned to science-based reading research. In order to be using one of these programs and kind of match the correct program to our students' needs, baseline data is used to instructionally match students into these programs based really on their specific and individual student needs. As kind of a wider overview of some of the features of these programs, in addition to the evidence-based reading strategies that are incorporated into these programs, they've really been specifically designed to incorporate teaching methods that have been highly researched to be effective for our students with significant cognitive disabilities. So some of those different features are that the programs are sequenced and highly programmed. So all of these programs are highly structured. They include scripted lessons for teachers. They include similar formats for each of the lessons throughout the program. And this can help increase the fidelity of the programs when they're implemented correctly. In addition, the programs really progress in small steps. So the skills within the program are task analyzed and broken down into smaller teachable components to make them more accessible for our students. The programs use a student-centered pace, so the pace of instruction is individualized for each student. So students who need more time to master a skill have time to repeat lessons and spend more time on them. Students who are ready to move forward can move at a faster pace. The programs include repetition and practice. So lessons are meant to be repeated several times as needed, and then mastered skills are consistently reviewed throughout the program. There's a variety of instructional formats to give flexibility. So programs can be used one-on-one with students. They can be used in pairs or in small groups. And some of the programs can also be used for whole group instruction. The programs also include built-in data collection systems. So all of them include intermittent assessments so that we can monitor the students' progress, as well as end of level and end of unit assessments to determine placement into higher levels of the programs. So as the students progress, we're moving them forward. These programs also are closely aligned with the principles of applied behavior analysis, or ABA. So the programs, several of the programs focus on learn-to-learn skills. They begin with those basic foundational skills like attending to a task, attending to a teacher and materials. It includes practicing individual responses and group responses. The programs use a discrete trial format, so students are given a clear question And if they respond correctly, they're immediately reinforced. If they respond incorrectly or do not respond, they're given that immediate corrective feedback. The programs use errorless teaching techniques. So to discourage our students from guessing, if they're incorrect, the correct answer is quickly provided so that students learn faster. Errorless teaching results in a quicker acquisition of the targeted skills, and it can help reduce the frequency of errors. The programs also use systematic prompting. So looking at different levels of prompting where we sort of start with a time delay of 0 seconds. So if a student makes a mistake or needs reinforcement or correction, it's happening immediately. And then as the students progress, that time delay can increase to help build independence and decrease that prompt dependence for our students. So we move towards that 3 to 5 second delay to give the students more opportunities to respond independently. The programs also use task analysis, which each really just means that each of the concepts within a lesson and each skill is really broken down into smaller, more manageable chunks in order to make it a little bit easier for our students to access. And those are all provided within a larger scope and sequence. Finally, because these programs were specifically developed for students with significant cognitive disabilities, they were made with a wide variety of accommodations and modifications already built in and accounted for. So some of these include multiple means of representation, which means the programs acknowledge that our students may recognize and comprehend different levels of representation. So some students may do better with real objects or photos. Others might do better with pictures or pictures and words paired together. Some may do better with just letters and words. So in order to sort of account for all those different learning methods, things are presented in a variety of ways throughout these programs. The programs also have multiple response methods. So the programs were designed with students who are non-vocal in mind. So there are options both to respond expressively for our students who are vocal, as well as receptively for our students who may not be able to do that. Many of the programs have response cards, there's books, and pictures that students can point to. For students who may not be able to point, they can use lower tech eye gaze, or if they're accessing it on a computer, they may use switches or eye gaze to use the computer. Additionally, students who use AAC devices to communicate or other alternate means can access those and use those throughout the programs as well. The programs also really try to simplify the language, so the scripting within each program is clear and concise, and that teachers can individualize that and simplify the language more if that's needed for those individual students. Many of the programs also include extension activities, which can help our students really generalize those concepts and skills to other academic and life experiences. So now let's delve into each of these programs individually a little bit more. So for our K-2 students in our English language arts, they're going to be accessing a program called Building with Stories, or BWS. BWS is a research-based framework. It includes read aloud and shared stories using 10 award-winning contemporary books. And it also includes a kit for adapting stories for students to help them access, as well as some related manipulatives that go with each story to help encourage student participation and to make that comprehension a little bit more hands-on and a little bit more concrete. The primary focus of this program is really to foster vocabulary, understanding, and knowledge of print awareness, listening skills, and communication independence. For our slightly older students in grades 3 through 5, they'll be accessing Access English Language Arts, grades 3 through 5, and Access ELA is also research-based curriculum for elementary students, and it allows access to foundational English language arts concepts, including reading, literature, informational texts, speaking, listening, language, and writing. There's 4 units of study within the program, and each one addresses major themes and include popular age-appropriate adapted texts for fictional novels, nonfiction texts such as biographies, informational texts, and poems. By using the different types of literature to teach themes, students can gain vocabulary and conceptual understanding to comprehend and describe their own life experience. Finally, our students who are in grade 6 will receive instruction using Adapted Classics. Adapted Classics is also a standard-based ELA program, and it covers 4 adapted classic novels. Each classic introduces a unique genre of literature. So those include mystery, adventure, biography, and fantasy, in order to teach our students about all the different kinds of reading and literature that they might be able to access. Each title within the series includes an adapted student version of the classic, and each of those adapted student versions have 4 distinct levels in order to differentiate instruction. There are thematic manipulatives for each story, which can again help make things a little bit more concrete, a little bit more hands-on for our students. The lessons contain the following elements: genre, author introduction, theme, prediction, engagement in adapted text, vocabulary development and review, whole text review, comprehension, written expression, as well as reader's theater. So there's a number of different elements of literacy built into this program. In addition to our basal resources, which again are determined by grade level, we determine individual student needs for literacy intervention programs. So in determining which program is going to be used by each student, Fairfax County uses a systematic data process to match our students to the most appropriate program to meet their needs. This process includes a review of relevant IEP information, as well as baseline assessment data, in order to identify the areas of strength and need for each student. And then based on that information, our staff members, our teachers and IAs and paraprofessionals are trained as needed in these different programs and can begin implementing appropriate literacy intervention programs. So we'll start off looking at our different literacy intervention programs here. The first one we'll talk about is Pathways to Literacy. So this one tends to be used a little bit less frequently. And our students who access Pathways to Literacy, this program was really based on research for teaching students with profound disabilities. It's considered a literacy readiness program and is intended for students who are non-vocal and do not consistently use words, pictures, or other symbols to communicate. Some of the core concepts include story comprehension, cause and effect, picture symbol use, and reading engagement. A program that's used a bit more frequently is Early Literacy Skills Builder. This is another program that is also research-based. Early Literacy Skills Builder, or ELSB, is a multi-year curriculum for students who use a variety of methods to communicate. It focuses on developing the foundations of literacy, including conventions of print, phonemic awareness, letter sound correspondence, and high frequency vocabulary words. It also covers all the National Reading Panel components and is based upon the principles of systematic and direct instruction. ELSB incorporates least prompt strategies, teachable objectives, and built-in lesson repetition, as well as ongoing assessment. Another program that's very similar to ELSB is our Early Literacy Skills Builder for Older Students, or ELSBO. This is for students in grades 6 and up, and ELSBO is an option for our students who would be working on the same skills as ELSB, but who may be in those older grades. This version focuses on the same foundations of literacy skills, but it was specifically designed to give our older students more age-appropriate activities. The objectives and content in this program are very similar to ELSB, but the curriculum is a blended program, which means that it can be delivered via software on the computer, as well as with print materials with the teacher. This way, for our students who do better with electronic learning, they have opportunities to practice those skills and learn on the computer. For our students who need more interaction with a person and with their teacher there, we also have the print materials, so they can use one or both of those methods to learn the different information in this program. The pictures and examples in this program are a bit less childlike, and they're really geared more towards our older learners. Again, it's to help our students really have those age-appropriate materials and be more on the same, be participating in things similar to the grade level peers. Finally, the last literacy intervention program we'll talk about today is Early Reading Skills Builder. So for our students in grades 5 and up, they can access Early Reading Skills Builder, or ERSB. This is a research-based program that was designed for students who are ready to go beyond some of the basic skills that are taught in ELSB and ELSBO. It's also a multi-year program, and it continues instruction in the 5 components of the science of reading. Some of the skills focused on in this program include identifying, blending, and segmenting sounds, decoding words, reading high-frequency words, and connected text, as well as answering comprehension questions. The program also has a writing component, and similar to ELSB for older students, ERSB is offered both as a computer-based option as well as having those printed materials for direct instruction with the teacher. So it's really offering more options to meet our students' needs. We recognize that this is a lot of information, and you may not know today which program your students are using. So we're putting a link in the chat here. This is the website for the Attainment company, and they're the company that make all of these different literacy programs. We encourage you to take some time on your own after today's webinar to really explore. There's a bit more information about each program, the components of each kit, and some of the research behind each of those kits as well. Just given the amount of time and each family has students accessing different things. We kind of did an overview today, but if you do want to delve more into that, you have the opportunity to do so. And you can always reach back out to us if you have additional questions about any of these programs as well. So looking ahead, just to kind of give you an idea of what this instruction might look like in the classroom with our students. In FCPS, we're implementing a 90 to 120 minute language arts block for students accessing an adapted curriculum. This block is going to include the use of the core instructional programs, which are both those basal English language arts programs and the literacy intervention programs. And that instruction is going to take about 60 minutes. So we have 30 minutes spent on our ELA program, 30 minutes spent on our intervention program. The rest of that 90 to 120 minute block will be used on working towards language arts specific IEP goals and objectives. It also can be used towards working towards our VSOL standards, which are the standards that are assessed through the VAP assessment. So this table kind of shows you how this might be broken down in a classroom. So you'll see if we look at grades 3 through 5, our students may be accessing English language arts for 30 minutes. And then for an additional 30 minutes, they're going to be accessing either Pathways to Literacy, ELSB, or Early Reading Skills Builder. And they may be in smaller groups or different groups for that instruction because they'll be matched to other students using that program. A lot of times we'll do center rotations as well within classes to kind of get through all this instruction and to group students in the different programs that they're using. All right, so as we kind of move forward, I know that was a lot of information. So we just wanted to know if looking at some of this information, hearing a little bit more about the science of reading this morning, hearing about some of the elements that are included in these programs, if there's any ideas that you may have to extend some of these learning experiences and to extend some of the curriculum that your students are using at school in the home environment. Unfortunately, we also realized that the chat is turned off right now, so we'll have this be a little bit more of a silent reflection, but in your feedback form, if you can think of some of those, or if it's something you want additional resources on, please include that in the feedback. But just think for a moment about ways you might be able to use this at home.
So as we are beginning to wind down, we do want to share two additional resources with you. One is the FCPS literacy resources for families. So there is a website which is on which is part of fcps.edu, which is dedicated to family resources for literacy. And there are a ton of resources there, which you can again explore on your own time, but the link is also included in the chat for you to explore. So that is a resource that we wanted to highlight. And then VDOE has done the similar thing where they have put together literacy resources for parents which are helpful resources for parents and families to use at home. So again, the link for that is also highlighted in the chat for you, and it will be included in your slideshow as well. So you guys can explore it and again, reach back out if you have any questions. And so thank you for participating today. As we have reviewed VLA and the changes and also the components of evidence-based literacy instruction, language arts, and literacy programming for students with significant cognitive disabilities, what questions might you have?